Welcome back to the Briefcase in the Barn.
Episode number?
Episode, we don't know. We're flying by the seat of our pants. This is an extra. You never know when you need an extra. So, hope you had a great week. And I'm sure Kyle has lots of things that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. Okay. Show segments are Words of a Wise Man, Let's Get Personal, Faith Life. Look at Gary's reaction right now. Real Reacts and Mailbag.
This podcast is going to be a reminder of why we don't do segments anymore on the show. That's the irony of it.
Listener questions. If you have questions, send them in. We love to hear from you. Even though we don't know when this can get posted, but that doesn't matter. First segment, Words of a Wise Man. Ready for this proverb from Solomon?
I need a proverb right now.
Fire tests the purity of silver and gold, but a person is tested by being praised. I read that this morning and I was like, what? So I looked it up. So apparently this helps us evaluate ourselves, just as silver and gold gets tested in a fire, whatever, the blacksmith. A person's character is revealed through praise. So if a person responds with arrogance, self-centeredness, careless, and they like just make it all about themselves after that, or if they get more grateful to God, motivated to improve, that shows steady character, remains consistent through both criticism and praise. Mm-hmm. But I'd never really, I
think of that all the time.
You think about this, a person's character is tested by praise?
Yeah, and just the idea of, I guess one of my favorite sayings is that most people can handle failure better than success, right? Most men. I always use men because that's just my frame of reference, but I don't know how it is for women.
My life certainly shows that. When I was successful work-wise, mainly during my years at MDT.
Yeah. You were not doing well personally.
No.
And I often feel like I can't, I guess, to be honest, and this is embarrassing, but it's like, and it's happened over and over in my life, that when things get really hard, I finally get on my knees, right? And I really plead with the Lord, and like we should be living that way all the time. Yeah. But you know, it's interesting, and Ken Dick says it really well in Freedom Sessions. The reason we don't is because if things are going to be okay in life, then we got this, right? Yeah. We don't need the Lord, right? So it's fascinating how we typically do our own thing, and if things are going well, then we're good. And if they're not, then we think we're in trouble, but we're always in trouble. We always need help.
One of the things I experienced the last couple of years doing all the recovery work is that criticism almost carries no more weight for me. Like if someone criticizes me, it doesn't really used to hit me so hard.
Just crush you.
Yeah, and now it barely touches me. But also
affects me a lot.
Praise does the same thing. It seems like the praise of man doesn't really do much for me either anymore. When before, I don't know if before I did more, but it was just like
criticism really affects me still.
Okay.
I look into that. I don't think I'd take it that well if I got harshly criticized by somebody. Now, I mean, it would depend who it came from, but
yeah, I'm just used to that, I guess.
No, I wouldn't necessarily say. I think there's a level of health in not having it affect you too much.
I think they're tied together though. You know, like that scale in Freedom Sessions of like if you can't feel a 5 in pain,
you're not going to feel a 5 in joy.
Yeah,
like a flatlined.
You're just flatlined. But I think it's in criticism too. If you're really affected by criticism, then you're really affected by praise.
It's probably more complicated than that because depending on what your if your love language is like, if words of affirmation are your love language, then
is that your love language? Isn't it physical touch?
It's physical touch to some degree.
I'm not touching you, by the way, but
no, you can. I like hugging you, but I'm a hugger. But I prefer to hug men actually more than women. But anyways, it's because it just feels inappropriate to be hugging women, right?
Oh, so yeah, okay, fair.
Women. That's where I'm coming.
Your wife.
I'd rather give you a hug than like when random ladies are like, "Let me give you a hug." Right?
You had that a lot. Random ladies want to give you hugs.
I had it more back in the day. Not as much lately now. No, most people just avoid me like the plague. Women in particular. But anyways, man, I got really thrown off by thinking about giving you a hug. Yeah, where I was going with that was just the idea of how it really affects I'm just thinking of how it really affects me if someone criticizes. And to some degree, it's probably healthy. We should there should be some level of caring what people think. I mean, if people were perpetually telling us something that needed to change and we never changed, or it.
Well, I really care. I really care what like the people closest to me think. My kids, my wife, my closest friends, like my pastor, like their criticism matters, and I'll definitely listen. But like I don't know, outside that circle, I just really don't give a shit. Like if you're not close to me, then it doesn't like I don't know, it just doesn't matter. And I think for most people, it's actually the way around. They don't care when the people closest to them criticize them. But if some person like out in the world, is publicly criticizing them and like their image or whatever,
they're all shook up.
All shook up.
Yeah, there's probably some truth to that. Yeah, we definitely should care about what the people closest to us think. They know us the best, and we're influencing their lives the most and affecting them the most.
And they see our character the clearest. Like our wife and kids, like inside your home, that's the real, most real you, most real version of you.
Yeah.
And so
interesting. Okay.
Nothing more to say about that?
No, that's more than enough.
Okay. Next segment. It's funny, we're recording this after I just did a poll on my Instagram.
That's why I feel like this had to be the next episode, but it's not. So I'm having a hard time transitioning in my mind, but that's totally fine.
Let me explain first, and then that comment will be relevant. We did a poll on my social media about if we should keep going with the segments or not, or if we should do more free-flowing style. And it was on Instagram was pretty overwhelmingly the free-flowing style rather than the segments. Even though we've only done the segments twice, I think there's only two published ones, so people don't really have a good feel for it yet. But
that's all it took for them to know they really hated it.
It's fine. And so Gary is completely twitching right now that we're doing doing these segments here. Okay, next segment, let's get personal. I thought I'd tell the story of how I met Trump, because a lot of people ask me that and don't know. And thought I don't know when this can get published, so I thought it would be still relevant. So when I worked at MDT, I had the MDT social media, and I reached out to Donald Trump Jr., his son, on Instagram and saying, hey, if he's ever interested in any of our products, let me know. And so he messaged back and he gave me his email, and he said he would, whatever. So I emailed him right away because just want to build that connection as much as I can, as strong as I can. And then he emailed me back with his cell phone number. And so I just put it in my phone and I didn't do anything with it. But about a month later, I went to New York with Nicole, just on a vacation. And so as the week before I went there, I texted him. I said, hey, I'm going to New York. He lived there at the time with my wife. Any good restaurant recommendations? I just wanted to, text him.
Real soft.
Real soft, soft start. And so he gave me a couple, and he said, yeah, you were around, come say hi. And so when we were there, I messaged him to say, hey, you're around, like come say hi at his office. And he didn't get back to me, and I was kind of bummed out, whatever. And then I think the day he said I could see him, I said, you know what, I'm just going to call him. I'm just going to see what happens. So I just called him, and he picked up. He said, oh, come by tomorrow. Sorry, I didn't get back to you. And so that night we were at a Mets game. Me and Nicole went to a baseball game there, the New York Mets. And when he got back to me, so we left the game early, went to New York City downtown. I went and bought like a nice blazer and a nice shirt because I didn't feel like going there like a slob, and I wasn't sure like what to expect. I had no interactions with this guy before. And then the next day I went to Trump Tower, just with Nicole, and the gold elevators there and stuff like that you've seen in 2016 when Trump got elected, everyone coming out of there, and just went to his office. And it was kind of funny. He had like a big glass wall going to his office with the glass door. I walked right into the glass wall.
Just slammed it?
Yeah. He didn't, I don't think he really noticed, but because he was on his phone when I walked in, he sat down. And
this is Donald Trump Jr.
Yeah. And then we chatted for half hour. And just kind of
What does he do?
At that time, I don't actually know. His brother Eric, who I got to know a little bit since as well, he's in charge of like all the companies, VP of operations, stuff like that. And Junior now seems to be just like a political pundit, and just doing whatever. I'm not sure what he does, but they're super into hunting and guns. And they used to go down to Czechoslovakia every summer for the whole summer and stay with their grandparents. And that's where they learned hunting and everything. Because their dad was just a New Yorker and wasn't into that kind of stuff.
He's not a hunter.
No.
Donald's not a hunter. And are these guys from like one of Donald Trump's first wives?
These are from Ivanka. So yeah, they would be Eric, Ivanka, and Dawn are from the same mom.
Okay.
And so I just chatted for half hour, and he's like, when I was there, he said, hey, a couple weeks from now is the NRA show. Do you want to meet my dad? I was like, yeah, of course. He's like, okay, send me your passport details because you have to get vetted by the Secret Service. Yeah. And so a couple weeks later, I went to the NRA show, and on one of the mornings of the show, I had to go to the convention center or whatever, and he was going to fly in and do a speech, and there was just a photo op beforehand, and so I got to meet Candace Owens there. And there was a few other people, head of like the NRA.
She's still popular, Candace Owens?
No, she went off the rocker. She's like left Daily Wire, and she's like into the Nazi stuff and like super anti-Jewish. Like I don't know, but she was like came from a really liberal family, and then like started kind of doing conservative things. Became extremely popular. She's making a lot of money.
Yeah,
and I don't think she has a good like foundation around her or group around her. Got too popular too quick, but
okay.
Anyway, so we had a line for a couple hours there, and had like literally a 10-second photo op with the president, and you don't got to take your own picture. The White House photographer takes a picture, and you got it sent to me like 2 weeks later.
Oh, that's bizarre.
Yeah.
Nobody's taking selfies with the president.
No, he was just staying there for like just a little line, and Don, like there's a couple other guys that I knew from the firearms industry that Don had invited and stuff like that.
Service standing there.
Yeah, and so I did that, and then I went back out and heard his speech right at the front row. It was kind of cool. Someone actually threw a phone on the stage during his speech, and the Secret Service like went and did their thing and stuff like that. It was in the news later, and
it's more interesting now because he's literally had people shoot at his head.
Yeah,
right? So I mean, it's
so this was 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, and then after that, I just got to know him a bit. So I ran to him at walked the NRA show with Don afterwards, which was really fascinating because I mean, I had no interactions with these guys before. Don't know what to expect, but just super nice, normal guys. Like they're just as average as they come. And they remembered my name and stuff like that. Like on the anniversary of like when Grace died and stuff like that, he reached out to me. Don did, and just said,
So do you have contact with him now or not much?
Very little. So I texted him a couple, like last week I did, something like that. He just sent me a couple thumbs up, and I traded some MDT stuff for some green fees to Bedminster Golf Course.
Okay.
That I've never taken him up on yet. So he has I bought some SkyPods, sent it to him because I, of course, got a discount on SkyPods or the MDT products.
Okay.
And so I traded him for green fees, and I still haven't taken him up because I needed someone to go with me to fly to New York to go golf there.
Expensive trip.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's one randomly. But they're so average, and average in not like a bad way, but just before you know someone that's really well known or famous, you think like I don't know, I think you glorify them a little bit, and afterwards it was they're just regular dudes that love their families and like hunting and guns, and that's what they like talking about the most.
Guns.
Yeah.
People that like guns really like guns.
Really like them.
I like guns too.
Yeah.
I don't ever shoot them though.
That's right. That reminds me, I sold you one of my guns with a nice thermal in there, and every time I go to Gary's house, I'm like, Gary, let's go check out the thermal. Let's go look at it.
Don't dare pull it out. Scared of it.
Okay, next segment. Faith life. How'd you get saved?
Long journey. Felt convicted a bit sitting in church as a kid, but then really went off the rails. I went to the Free Reformed Church, right? Good church. Went off the rails. I think I told the story one other time on the podcast about how did I say that story? About how I couldn't go to church one time because I was too drunk when I was 18.
Okay, yeah.
Right? And the guy picked me up, took me to another church, which is pretty awesome.
And were your parents Christians growing up?
Yeah.
Both?
Yeah, maybe not professing early on because they grew up in a hyper Calvinist environment where you can never be sure that you're saved, right? Because ironically,
even in the FRC, that was
no, but I mean, it's what I always say on here. Like stuff you're taught when you're young, it dies hard, even if it's totally wrong, right? So,
but your parents struggled with that because where did they grow up? Where did they go to church?
I mean, and there again, I mean, that's another issue with the way we grew up is that things are not communicated. So it's like as if it's private. Like, no, like the Bible says the opposite, right? Like,
no, but I'm trying to figure out, like, you said your parents.
Did I know that?
Your parents didn't have assurance, you said, right? Because you said they
not when I was little, I don't think as much, but for sure they did, like at Free Reformed. I mean, they were, like when we were at the FRC, they were.
Oh, okay. They were at a different church beforehand?
Yeah, we came initially from the NRC, and my mom would have grown up in the RCNA church when she was younger.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that was her trajectory, right? And she's the one that has often, and she is very balanced and thinks very clearly about it, and I think very objectively. And she'll say like, "Well, it's true. Like you read the same doctrine, you read the same books."
Yeah, there's way more
It's just
similarities than
emphasis.
difference.
It's just emphasis where you put the emphasis, and so that's fascinating. And as I grew up learning that, it really helped me realize how people could think so differently while reading the same thing. And I think it's important to realize.
I think that's why, like, there's something called topical preaching and preaching like through Bible books.
Yeah.
And John Calvin, who all these guys say is like basically very high up, the guru. So the guy, he very much promoted preach book through book, verse by verse, one at a time, so that you can't skip anything. And when you start picking where you're going to preach from every Sunday,
you're in deep trouble.
You're in deep trouble very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's funny how you can have that at any church, right? You could have it at the most conservative, strictest church. You could have it at the most church that's way out in left field. You could have them just grab their thing that they want to talk about and then cherry pick verses to kind of defend their thesis, right? And so I felt like, I mean, we had one pastor most of my childhood at the Free Reform, very caring man, great guy. And I remember one point in deep struggle in high school. I think I was expelled or something, not at school. And I was just
you were smoking pot at school, weren't you, or something?
Yeah, I was smoking
grade
pot
8?
at school. No, grade 12. I was a student council president, right? They stripped the presidency from me.
Oh,
I was pretty upset about it.
terrible.
Like, democracy. What are we learning here? You can't just take this from me. I was voted by the people. The people have spoken. If the people, like, what are they going to do? Impeach me? I mean, if they do, then I guess I'll step down. No, you're done. So anyways, no longer student council president. It's actually funny. I forget about those memories, but it was really embarrassing at the time, probably, or maybe I didn't care. Probably just smoked more pot. But anyways, I signed a paper to not, and the school was gracious and let me come back so I could graduate.
You signed a paper to not smoke pot?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really interesting. I made a bet when I was in probably grade 7 or 8 with a neighbor, an older guy, that I would never drink till the day I graduated from high school, $100 bet. And because of that, I never drank.
And then you went off the rails.
Yeah. And it's pretty awesome because I probably wouldn't have graduated from high school and would have had a lot. I mean, like, you can't handle drinking too much when you're older, let alone when you're in high school. Like, it's just not.
By the way, is Julia still doing his bet?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, we're way off track here.
Does not matter.
Well, how did you get saved?
Well, it's all part of the journey, right? The drinking led to it. And the pot smoking probably did too. And that's interesting because you have to have a bottom, right? Like, you have to have, like, you know, what's your bot, or like, you have to come to the end of yourself, right? And I've come to the end of myself many times in my life. But yeah, God's been really gracious. So I
know your misery.
Know your misery. Yeah. And my misery is obvious. Very obvious to me anyways. So I started drinking out of high school, and then when I bottomed out in that, I ended up going to AA and got sober, but was still completely despondent. And it was super interesting. I had
sober from alcohol.
Sorry?
Sober from alcohol.
Yeah. Did a lot of other horrible things. Veered into whatever, right? And then I was getting a ride back from a guy one time. I hitchhiked because I didn't have a license, because the first 4 out of the 8 years of my driving career, I didn't have a license. I was prohibited from driving. So one of the reasons I went to jail for driving while prohibited. But I was hitchhiking, and a guy I knew from my past picked me up and just probably asked the same question similar to you, except like, hey, are you saved? Or like, you know, are you a Christian or what? And, you know, I had this whole all this doctrine and weird stuff in my head. And I'm like, no, I don't think I am. But like, I'm a hurting unit, and I was open to, you know, receiving forgiveness. I needed forgiveness. And he just told me, he's like, you know, you just go home and read your Bible and just pray. Like, just get on your knees and pray and ask God to save you. And I'm like, oh, it can't be that easy, right? Like, it's just this, and that's where it's the way we're taught. And this is like, be careful the words I use, but the way we are taught, I'll just leave it at that. How I was taught was that you could do nothing, yet ironically, if you can do nothing, then something's pretty easy. If God's doing everything and you're actually doing nothing, it should be pretty easy. But we always were brought that it could never be that easy, right? And that's where I disagree with a lot of kind of the idea of how we're taught, where it's like, you know, and we've talked about it before, I think, even like the thief on the cross, right? It's just like that. Like, that man had no doctrinal training, had no long period of nothing. And granted, that's just one story, but like, you know, that's one story. It's in the Bible for a reason. It's to help people that grew up like I did, where it's like, oh no, there's got to be some unique thing. And so for me, it was just, I went home and just pled to God to save me. I was reading through the Psalms, which I'd probably never read the Psalms in my life up to that point, other than at school when you had to read the Psalms in grade 3.
Isn't that ironic how I think that's super common where people just never read their Bibles.
No.
Grow up in a Christian church and they like really hold to their doctrines and stuff like that. And I
think a lot of people read their Bible, but as a, hey, I got to read my Bible.
Or just read it after supper time or something else like that. But they don't actually like, well, it's super hard to read first of all, if you're reading the King James version, stuff like that. Like it's like reading French, but
well, not if you're used to that. I don't think that would necessarily matter. I just feel like it's more.
No, that's not true. Like I remember like reading about Lot, for example. Like his daughters went into him, and I'm like, okay, whatever, keep reading. I had no idea. And then I read it in like the NLT version. I remember going to my dad and be like, did you know that they slept with him and like tricked him, had sex with him? Nasty. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, I didn't. That's not what I read.
It wasn't clear to me when I was 12, probably for good reason. You couldn't have handled that information at that time.
A really funny one is, so my dad got saved by Psalm 42. As a deer longs after water.
Pants for the water. Yeah.
And so in the King James version, it says, as a hart pants after the water brooks, so longs my soul after thee, O Lord. I think that's the... And so I like to poke the bear, right? And poke at these things like the Bible version thing. And so I'd be like, hey, Dad, you want to go hart hunting? Like, what?
Vad sagt du, jongen?
Hart hunting?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you don't... This is your verse. And a hart is a deer. I guess in Old English. So.
Okay. Yeah, that part, I do not understand using language from 450 years ago.
But anyways, I think that going back to it, like reading your Bible is super key. So you were reading the Psalms?
Yeah. And I think at that moment, I probably just gave up. And there again, with all the doctrine I had in my head, my life changed obviously a lot. It had already been changing a bit, but it really changed after that. But it still was really awful in a lot of ways. And so it's been a real journey of...
Yeah, it's not a black and white. You're always fixed.
No.
It's the start. It's the
and
start.
There again, we were taught that really well growing up. Like you're taught about, and it's like the $85 theological word sanctification, but like, no, it makes sense, right? Like God works in you over time, and we should... Our conscience should become...
That wasn't clear to me. I thought once you got saved, that's like when you arrived. I didn't know that was the starting point. I thought that was like the finish line.
It was taught, but yet the people that were saved didn't show that they needed a lot of sanctification yet. That was part of the problem. Yeah, so they taught the doctrine well, but didn't practically say, hey, this is how I'm struggling. We never grew up in a culture where like you heard about sins, but then they were the judged people who did awful things rather than the person that's a believer and just saying, hey, this is how I struggle with pride. Like actually, not I struggle with pride when I'm eating the microphone.
Practically, what
does that look like? Like just be humble and be honest and say, hey, I'm literally coveting this other business owner stuff, or this is what I struggle with. Like just be honest, right? And I think today, and sometimes probably to a fault, you and I, we're trying to be, and I hope that comes across. It's like I'm a really broken, sinful man, and it's like I would hope that I have that posture, right? That I desperately need the Lord, and I think often probably doesn't come across that way, especially when you're like me or you, where you talk too much, or I talk too much. I'll speak for you. I talk too much. Then you just come across as a know-it-all, right? Which is not great. I don't want to come across that way. My wife says not to worry about it too much, but...
Yeah, I mean, I think it's we have to stay in that spot. We desperately need Jesus.
Yeah. And I think it comes back to our initial starting segment of the day about, being success, or whatever the word, the official verse was. It's like,
how do you deal with praise?
How do you deal with praise? It's like, how do you deal with praise? Or is it just like, hey, thanks be to God for everything that I have? And yeah, he's good, right? He's good even if we don't have anything. So you remember
what psalm you read?
No.
So you read a psalm and you asked God, please save me. And after that, you believed you were saved? Like did you have assurance?
Yeah, not all the time. No, it struggled for a long time, which I feel is just another blessing, because I can really identify with people that struggle with it, and I can be encouraging to them. And I can say, listen, first of all, like there's 100 verses that talk about who the devil is, right? And how the devil influences us. And like, even before you're a Christian, but definitely after, the battle's still going. It's still going.
It ramps up, I think.
Yeah. And it's like, well, and I felt it. Like you're in leadership or you're just doing good things, and the devil just wants you to stumble. He wants you to hate yourself. He wants you to question whether you're really following Jesus. He wants to question you whether we're worth it. He wants to question whether you're actually whether God really has you. And that's what's fascinating about being a Christian and starting to have I have some level of assurance now, more than I probably ever have, which is a miracle. But it's it's not about us. It's about God's promises. And it's fascinating there again. We grew up, God's promises are true. God's promises are true. You can count on God. Well, read the promises. Like, what are his promises?
Yeah.
Like, if he has you, he has you. And if you trust in him, you're saved.
Yeah.
If you whoever calls upon the name of the Lord will be saved. Well, that was not a verse that was.
And faith is especially needed when we don't feel anything. I remember when I got saved.
When you often won't.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Exactly. So I was like super hot, whatever, for Jesus, if you can say it that way. And then 6 months later, I remember just being like, man, I don't like feel anything. I'm not into this stuff anymore. I have like nothing. And I remember going to my dad being like, what is going on? Like, I have nothing. And he goes, now you need faith.
Interesting. Yeah.
He goes, before you were relying on those feelings and stuff like that. That was your assurance. He goes, you need faith.
Now you just have to have
Do you
faith.
trust in the word of God? And do you trust in Jesus? So how much assurance would you say you have now?
Some days not very much. I would say that. Mostly I do. I guess I feel more. I mean, I've been really blessed with experiences where people have great assurance even, right? And I've,
I have it with my assurance that if I'm even starting to hide sin or like just not be open with people to any degree, that's when my insurance starts plummeting. But if I'm like continually just being open with my like closest friends and stuff like that,
about
and
your
Nicole,
real struggles.
my struggles and just being real and stuff like that, that has consistently kept my assurance the highest, because it's just like, I'm not relying on, when I'm starting to hide stuff, that means I'm starting to rely on how good I am. And when I'm just open about it, I have to admit the fact that all my only hope is in Christ. And that's when my assurance is the highest.
Yeah, I find it fascinating. Like even when Paul, and there again, I mean, like he wrote a good chunk of the New Testament, and I think he said he was the chief of sinners, right? So now if I put myself back when I was a kid and I looked at all the people that were the quote unquote spiritual gurus or whatever in the community, none of them
filled that category
in my mind. And to be fair to them, they may well have felt that way, but that was never being communicated in a practical way. It was, no, I look this way. I look different than most people. I dress this way. I do these things. I don't do these things. And there again, those are all fine things. It's just like, is your heart, are you really actually sharing your heart, or are you just making things look a certain way? Right? And that's important.
Communion or Lord's Supper. I used to think that if you went to communion or Lord's Supper, that meant you were a good person, and that if you stayed in your pew, that meant you were bad and you weren't good enough to be saved yet. But obviously it's the opposite. You go up there and take communion because you admit that you're not a good person and that you need Jesus. And if you're not taking part of it and not a Christian, then you're admitting, I don't need him.
It's also why I feel like a lot of people could be Christians and not be partaking communion. And some people would probably really disagree with me on that. But I just think that when there's that much pressure and those types of preconceived ideas, I think that, you know what, and there again, I mean, God knows our heart, and that's really what matters. And I feel like obviously we need to answer to him. And so I feel like, it's just, there's this weird dichotomy going on where, like you say, obviously the people that are going and people that are professing have the right posture. It's just that there's such a level of protecting your image, or just, it's so hard to be really vulnerable in certain areas, right? So
when did it become like really clear to you? So you got like, you kind of, or like really seeing like the beauty of Christ, that he like died for your sins, and like really like
I think even early on, because I just knew the awful things I had done, and I felt his grace at times. I feel like I've really seen it through like being a leader, where like God's been very gracious despite all my shortcomings, right? That I can still be somewhat of a leader, and I feel like I can be honest about it. And sometimes I'll feel the condemnation come where it's like, oh, right? Like I'll say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, or even maybe in this setting. But just through like COVID especially, right? Where there's just such polarizing views.
Visceral opinions.
And I hate even talking about it, but I feel like, no, it was a defining time for me where I probably struggled. I think I struggled in some sense leading in that, maybe didn't always feel completely aligned, but God just really ground me down and made me realize that my opinion, even if it is right, it's okay to just let it go. It's okay just to be great. What does being gracious mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Right. And it like,
so what do you say now? If someone comes to you and says, Gary, how to become a Christian? What do you say? Share the gospel with them.
Cry out to God to save you. cry out to God to save you.
And how do you define the gospel?
How do I define the gospel? Jesus basically loving and caring for those that, and I mean, the Bible says it really well. Well, while we're still yet sinners, Christ died for us, right? And I think that's there again. That's where it doesn't line up with what we believed. I'm not even saying with what we were taught, because we might have been taught exactly right. But
right.
like my perception of what it was get better, then be a Christian.
Yeah.
False teaching.
No. Where you are today.
False teaching. You are wherever you are. If you trust it, if you repent of your sin and turn to God, right? And there again, that's where the whole hyper-Calvinism or that piece gets messy, where you start to say, well, maybe you're not one of the elect. Like, I don't like that conversation. I feel like the elect is God's business.
I think the Bible clearly defines it as the elect is there so you would not boast. Like it's for Christians just not boast. That it's about.
And it's more about God's sovereignty, right? Like God knows everything, and obviously He knows the trajectory of my life, and that's comforting. It's comforting. It's encouraging. And I feel like
I also notice it more that, like, just actually going back to that first thing, like how do you deal with the praise of man, is I've seen a lot of older Christians in like their 60s, 70s, 80s, like fall into like big sins, so to speak, like adultery or other things after being like a pastor for years and years and stuff like that. A bunch came out just recently and stuff as well. And it just shows you that like it doesn't get... I always used to have the idea it was like the battle against sin or like against your evil desires somehow got like easier, or like you're less susceptible to sin, or like after years and stuff like that. But no, like especially when you get into positions of leadership or an influence, stuff like that, the devil's probably going to attack you more and make it harder, and you have to be more on guard. Like, like someone like Paul Washer, like when he travels, he always has someone traveling with him and watching him and stuff like that, like to guard himself. He goes like, I don't want to, like, it just...
I think if you're doing that seriously, you are less likely to stumble over time, though. I feel
yes,
like
you are.
You know what I mean? If you are actually taking the steps, it's just more likely that over time you may become lackadaisical.
Exactly. That's the
and the devil is seeking to devour and destroy, and so
always be on guard.
Be on guard.
All right, moving on to
we got to wrap her up soon.
Reel Reacts.
Oh, we're doing one of these.
We're going to react to a reel that Jonathan sent in. Whatever his last name is, too long.
I appreciate you coming on the podcast today, man. It's been fun. Hope you'll come back.
Oh, yeah. Anytime.
I feel like I do need to be a little honest with you before we go. I don't have a podcast, and this is not a podcast that we've been doing. I think I just wanted to talk with you and just kind of hang out, and I didn't know how to initiate that outside of the context of a podcast. So I pretended that I had a podcast when in reality we've just been two men hanging out getting to know each other.
Yeah, we've been talking for 2 hours.
And it's been a good 2 hours for me. I got to know you a little better, and I appreciate you coming by. You know what I mean?
What about that ad read?
Can I ask you a question? If I had invited you over for 2 hours to just talk, would you have come over?
No.
Actually, these microphones aren't even plugged into anything. These are fake. So, you got anything you want to plug?
That's awesome.
Title of that reel was How to Make Friends in 2024.
He's making fun of us is what he's doing, first of all.
I know he is. He is. I just laughed so hard. I was like, I'm going to play that on the podcast. Exactly what I told
People will appreciate that.
I think that's...
Jonathan's dying to be on the podcast. That's what's going on here. That's what's going on here. But I'm still pretty close to him, even though he and I are not on a podcast together. So he should appreciate that.
Okay.
He's pretty needy. He's not as needy as you are, but he's a close second.
Okay. John.
I says, pardon? John can fill in one time when I'm gone, and you'll get some sound theology.
Good Reformed guy.
Oh, yeah.
Mailbag.
Great guy.
Mailbag. Moving on. Next segment. Having listened to you guys for a while, you seem to be Reformed, but seem to have a dislike for the Reformed churches. Why is that?
No, I don't have a dislike for Reformed churches. No, I struggle with some things about it. I struggle with the idea that if you meet someone from a Reformed church, you quickly know that they come from a Reformed church, and then that's the best church. So I struggle with that part. I think that God's kingdom's pretty broad. I think all of us are going to be probably pretty surprised about who we're going to see in eternity, if that is a thing even. But
What? Oh,
well,
seeing each
just
other?
the idea of like, I mean, I'm not going to start
Eternity-
pretending to
eternity's-
understand eternity,
yeah.
but I'm just saying. I'm just saying that there's a lot of saved people all over the world,
Of course.
and they're not all Reformed. And I think that when you think, and this goes for any church, this is not slagging on any denomination. I think anytime you meet somebody, and we all meet people like that all the time, and we could probably be that way. I probably am that way. If we think we've nailed something, or nailed our theology, let's say, which, to be fair, we know a lot of people that think they have nailed their theology.
I mean, I would have fallen into that camp and still feel like I have something to do.
Yeah. So let me turn it this way. If you would write someone off because they would leave your particular denomination, you are saying that you have nailed your theology and that exactly what you believe is the most accurate. And to me, the arrogance of that is the opposite of everything that Scripture would speak of when it comes to humility and grace. And you know what I mean? So that's why I struggle with, if it comes across ever as being, hey, these guys sound pretty angry about where they come from, that would be my bent. And that's not about where, because to be honest, actually the church that I went to as a kid is a great church. And like Marie and I always say, we could go to a lot of it. We could go there. We could go to almost any church. We could go to any Reformed churches. I'd probably be most likely to go to a Reformed church. It's more the idea of any church. And a lot of Reformed churches, I think, fall in this camp. At least in my experience, it's been when you're Dutch, you're very sure of yourself, right? And then that comes across as, we've nailed it. We got it right. And I've seen it where people, and I'm seeing it a lot now in leadership at another church, you see people come from a church completely wounded. And they didn't leave the church because they slept with somebody that wasn't their wife. They didn't leave the church because they're beating their kids or doing awful things and under church discipline. They literally just left the church. They just didn't totally agree with the theology, and then they leave there skewered. Well, when the Bible says, hey, love them as Christ loved the church, and care, and everything should be layered in love, otherwise you're a clanging cymbal, I would challenge people that there's a lot of clanging cymbals out there. And it even, I heard a story in the last week, like just awful, where somebody, was totally living in sin themselves and then skewering someone in their family for leaving the church. It's just like, and that's an extreme example. I know that's not often the case. Lots of times people are doing all the right things and just really unhappy, but primarily we should care for people's soul, not what church they sit in on Sunday. And my experience has been that people are a lot more concerned what denomination you go to than whether you're trusting in God and whether you're living right with Him in your daily life. So I feel pretty strongly about it. Yeah. And I don't know if that accurately sums up how you would feel, but I just, and I would hope it doesn't come across as hating on Reformed churches. It probably does. So for that, I apologize. But because obviously, like, most of my best friends go to amazing Reformed churches. I just feel like any church, whether it be the Pentecostal movement or whatever, it's like when you think we've nailed it, like, no, we can all learn something from others. We should all be, churches should be changing too. This is another thing people might disagree with me about, but I feel like everybody would agree that as a Christian, how you look and how you walk and your life should, if you're becoming more sanctified, should change.
Yeah.
And I have always argued, and there again, I haven't gotten into the weeds with anybody about this that probably wants to argue with me. Now they will. A church should be changing. If church has leadership and they're godly leadership and their church is growing and people are being convicted and church leadership is wrestling through things, it should be changing.
Yeah. And
our
also,
church has changed on really, really big things. Like we've changed, and I think that that's not a bad thing. I mean, and someone would say, well, if you change, you're automatically going down the slippery slope. No, like you can be more convicted of things, of certain areas of sin or areas where you need to change. Yeah. And all churches should have that. It doesn't matter where you land on any spectrum of theology, right?
And we're all, and I think John MacArthur said this. He goes, I'm probably doing a whole bunch of things wrong. I just don't know what they are.
At least he can say that. So we never grew up where that was being said ever.
And I guess the point
is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
And I think the point I'm trying to make with that is that like we're always blind to certain things.
Yeah. It's human nature.
And our human nature. And so we have to be constantly examining ourselves, but then also the body we're a part of.
Yeah. So, and that goes back to what I said about people leaving her. It's like when you have someone that's brave enough to come to you to challenge you on something, even leadership or even me as a leader, it's like, first, like you may disagree and that person may be really wrong, But as a general rule, if someone's coming with some humility and love, it takes great courage as a person in the church to come forward.
Yeah.
So when that person comes and they've been convicted about this in their heart, and then they go to church leadership and say, hey, I'm wrestling with this, and we're doing this, and I'm wrestling with it. And then the leadership just comes down with the hammer and says like, oh, don't you dare question that. We've always done it this way. Or how, how could you, and there again, it's the flavor of how you do it. Like people can really disagree.
Well, especially
I really disagree with some people on a lot of stuff, people that I hang out with, but they're wonderful, caring people, and they're pretty gracious, right? And I hope I'm coming. I mean, I'm sound like I'm ranting. I don't like it. I gotta stop. Good question. I mean, it's unfortunate. I can see why people feel that way.
I struggle answering it because I just don't want to. Because I don't want to say, well, my it's no secret. My dad's a pastor of the inner city, stuff like that, and I grew up in that world, and I've seen it firsthand. And I also
did I say it the right way, or did I come across there as too judgmental?
That was genuine and real.
Okay. Well, I apologize if it came across as like I'm just saying, and I'm not saying it's about Reformed churches, because other denominations are like this. Like it doesn't.
No, exactly.
It's not.
It just looks
could
different.
be anybody. It just looks different.
Yeah.
It's about the idea that you, as a church, community, denomination, have nailed it. And the irony to me is, having lived in two quite like very similar but yet quite different, they both are sure they are nailing it. One of them is wrong. No, guess what? Both are. And that's the humor to me. Like as a person that's, there again, now in a totally different denomination, yet I'm still part of a denomination and there's problems there. Yeah. Like, welcome to the world we live in. Like it's.
And still ranting.
Sorry?
And still ranting.
And still ranting. Stop, Bars. Stop.
Yeah, I don't know really exactly how to answer the question.
Can you answer the question? I've already forgotten the question.
Having listened to you guys for a while, you seem to be Reformed, but seem to have a dislike for the Reformed churches. Why is that?
No, I would still consider myself.
I'll just say I've been really hurt by a lot of things and felt like I didn't have my questions answered and felt betrayed and stuff like that. But I don't know if it's worth even to like go into those things. Maybe it is. Some people would argue that it is and like be like, hey, put everything on the table that you disagreed with. No. I don't, maybe in a private setting, I'll tell you, but
no, I probably said too much, but questions asked, so hey.
Yeah. Okay, we are going to head into overtime. If you want to watch overtime, head over to patreon.com/Furiously Curious, or you can watch him on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Have a great week.
But I have no idea when this is coming out. Either way, thanks for watching. See you guys next week.
Take care.